Imagine a young leader, just 36 years old, stepping into one of the most challenging roles on the continent, taking charge of a nation weighed down by crises, surrounded by leaders who treat power like a personal inheritance. That's Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. But he's not your typical president. No extravagant cars, no golden palaces, no private jets whisking him away to luxury destinations. Instead, he drives a simple, well-worn Toyota pickup and lives on the same modest salary he earned as a soldier, roughly $1,000 a month. It's almost unheard of, especially in a region where leaders often live in opulence while their people struggle to afford basic necessities. But Traoré is rewriting the rules. Instead of enriching himself, he's pouring his energy into rebuilding his country. His focus isn't on personal wealth, it's on real, tangible change. When he assumed power in 2022, it wasn't after a carefully orchestrated campaign or lofty promises. It happened in a moment of national frustration. The government had failed its people, and Traoré stepped forward. Since then, he's done something rare in politics. He's led with integrity. While other leaders stash millions, sometimes billions in offshore accounts, luxury properties, and private islands, Traoré owns none of that. No hidden wealth, no designer watches, no sprawling estates. What he does have is something far more valuable: the respect of his people. His authority doesn't come from fear or intimidation. It comes from trust, not because of empty words, but because of actions that speak louder. Across much of Africa, presidential convoys are like royal processions, gleaming black SUVs with tinted windows, blaring sirens, and armed escorts clearing roads as if ordinary citizens are mere obstacles. Leaders move in bubbles of privilege, shielded from the realities their people face daily. But in Burkina Faso, the scene is different. A dusty Toyota pickup rolls through the streets, no bulletproof glass, no swarm of bodyguards, just a man sitting in the front seat like any other citizen heading to work. That's Traoré. He doesn't hide behind layers of security or distance himself from the public. He rides in the same kind of vehicle his soldiers use, sometimes even traveling in military trucks meant for the front lines. Why? Because he doesn't just claim to be a man of the people, he lives like one. To those who've spent decades watching leaders parade past in luxury, that old Toyota isn't just a car, it's a statement, a powerful one. It says leadership isn't about being untouchable, it's about being present, accessible, and accountable. But look around the continent, and the contrast is stark. Where are the billions meant for hospitals, schools, and clean water? Too often they've vanished, siphoned off by those who call themselves leaders but live like emperors. In Nigeria, former governors lounge in mansions worth millions while hospitals lack basic supplies. In Kenya, politicians fly private helicopters over flooded villages where families cry out for help. Elsewhere, the children of presidents flaunt sports cars worth more than entire communities see in government support for years. Meanwhile, ordinary people struggle to afford food, medicine, and education. From opulent estates in capital cities to secret offshore accounts, the story remains the same. Africa's wealth has been looted to enrich a few while the majority suffer. But now, something is shifting. Burkina Faso is showing that Africa doesn't have to keep begging, borrowing, or bending to external pressures. It's proving that self-reliance is possible, that the continent can stand on its own, reclaim its resources, and write a new story. The question is, will the rest of Africa follow? Let's be honest. Africa isn't poor. It's rich in oil, gold, diamonds, fertile land, and human potential. Yet its people remain among the poorest in the world. Why? Because the wealth doesn't stay where it belongs. It doesn't build roads or schools. It disappears into the pockets of the powerful. We've seen it too many times. A leader in East Africa with a garage full of luxury cars, each one worth enough to fund dozens of schools. A president in West Africa who made his fortune from oil, flying in private jets while his country's hospitals crumble. A ruler in Central Africa throwing million-dollar birthday parties in Europe while children back home drink from polluted streams. Let's call it what it is. These aren't leaders. They're scavengers, feeding off the suffering of their own people. Their diamond-studded watches gleam while teachers go months without pay. Their champagne flows in five-star hotels while families scramble for scraps. Their tailored suits are stitched from the dreams they've stolen from an entire generation, and yet they have the audacity to pretend they care. Behind the polished speeches, they're nothing more than puppets, dancing to the tune of foreign interests. They live behind high walls, guarded by guns, while their people live in fear, guarded by nothing but hope. But in Burkina Faso, a different story is unfolding. Captain Ibrahim Traoré didn't wait for permission to lead. He didn't need a crown or a title handed down by the old guard. In 2022, amid chaos and despair, he stepped forward, not to rule, but to rebuild. He inherited a nation shattered by conflict, drained by corruption, and ignored by the world. And instead of following the same tired script, he tore it up. He's not playing by their rules. He's making his own. And people across the continent are taking notice. From the markets of Dakar to the neighborhoods of Nairobi, Traoré's rise wasn't just a political shift. It was a wake-up call. The people were exhausted, tired of empty promises, tired of being abandoned, tired of watching their resources enrich everyone but them. His predecessor, Paul-Henri Damiba, was pushed out not just because he lost control, but because the people lost faith. Burkina Faso needed more than speeches. It needed action. Traoré, a young captain who had already proven himself on the battlefield, didn't come with talk of foreign alliances or debt-laden deals. He came with a simple message: Burkina Faso must take care of itself first. While other African presidents jet off to beg for loans or sign exploitative contracts with foreign corporations, Traoré has been doing something radical, using Burkina Faso's own money to build Burkina Faso. Instead of taking on crippling debt, he invested 20 million of the country's funds into farming equipment, tractors, plows, and tools that actually help the people. It might not sound glamorous, but in a nation where most depend on agriculture, it's life-changing. In 2024, Burkina Faso produced nearly 6 million tons of cereal, a record. That's not just a statistic. It's full stomachs, thriving families, and a step toward real independence. Compare that to what happens elsewhere. Some leaders travel the world, hands outstretched for loans that vanish into private accounts while their people sink deeper into poverty. But Traoré? He's building while others make excuses. He's proving that when a country invests in itself, real progress happens. Social media erupted when the news broke. One post captured it perfectly. While African leaders beg for loans they'll steal, Traoré just spent $20 million on farming equipment, paid in full. That single line struck a nerve. It wasn't just praise. It was a challenge to the corrupt elite watching from their gilded offices. And it doesn't stop there. Take gold, Burkina Faso's buried treasure. For years, foreign companies from France, Canada, Russia, and Australia have mined it, reaping profits while the country saw little benefit. Traoré is changing that. He's taking control of the gold industry, ensuring Burkina Faso keeps more of its wealth. He even established a state-owned gold refinery, meaning the country can process its own gold instead of shipping it raw to others. It's a game changer. This small West African nation is sending a clear message. Our resources belong to us, not to foreign corporations, not to exploitative deals, not to anyone who's been taking without giving back. And if this works, if Burkina Faso truly takes charge of its gold, its farms, its future, it could inspire others. Countries like Congo and Zimbabwe, rich in minerals but trapped in poverty, might start asking, why are we still letting outsiders walk away with our wealth? But Traoré isn't stopping at gold. He's thinking bigger. Instead of relying on expensive imported medicines, he wants Burkina Faso to produce its own. That means local factories, local jobs, and affordable health care. No more waiting for foreign aid or overpriced drugs. It's the kind of vision the late Thomas Sankara dreamed of, an Africa that makes what it needs on its own terms. Proof? His government is constructing a 500-bed national hospital. While other presidents complain about frozen aid, Traoré is laying bricks. He's not tweeting for sympathy, he's building solutions. And people are noticing. One online comment put it bluntly, Traoré isn't begging because he's not waiting to be saved. This shift in Burkina Faso isn't just making waves, it's shaking the foundations of the old system, the era of leaders living large while their people suffer, of cozying up to former colonial powers, of signing away land and resources. That model is being challenged. Traoré has scrapped more than just old habits. He removed French as an official language. He expelled diplomats accused of meddling. He renamed streets that honored colonial figures. Even the colonial-era wigs worn in courtrooms, symbols of a painful past, are gone. And instead of running to Western powers for approval, he's joining forces with neighbors like Mali and Niger to form the Alliance of Sahel States, AES. Together, they're saying no to being dictated to and yes to self-determination. Online, Traoré is being called a true son of Africa, not for his speeches but for his actions. He's standing up to powerful interests without flinching. He's envisioning a future where Africa doesn't ask for permission, it just moves forward. Of course, not every claim is flawless. Stories about Burkina Faso wiping out all foreign debt might be exaggerated. Experts say the country still owes billions. But what matters is the shift in mindset. People are hungry for change. They want leaders who care more about building schools than building personal fortunes. Leaders who fix roads instead of riding in convoys. Leaders who don't cling to power for perks but use it to lift their people. Captain Ibrahim Traoré isn't playing by the old rules. While others chase handouts and sign away their country's futures, he's saying, enough. Africa doesn't need to beg for a seat at the table. We can build our own. He's betting on local farming, local industry, and full control over Burkina Faso's gold. And with every move, he's proving a bold idea. Africa can stand tall, produce its own goods, and shape its own destiny. Meanwhile, across the continent, too many leaders are still stuck in the same cycle. Luxury homes, offshore accounts, private jets. While they live like kings, their people queue for water or walk miles to see a doctor. That's not leadership, that's betrayal. But the tide is turning. There's a new energy, a growing fire, and Traoré is at the heart of it. Burkina Faso, this young captain, didn't just reject the usual power structures, the IMF, the World Bank, even France's influence. He stood firm. He speaks to a generation tired of being exploited, tired of lies, tired of watching Africa's wealth benefit everyone but Africans. Of course, the road ahead isn't easy. Burkina Faso faces armed groups, economic pressure, and immense challenges. But success isn't about perfect conditions. It's about stepping up when the odds are against you. And Traoré has done just that. He's dropped the begging bowl and picked up a shovel. He's building hospitals, investing in farmers, and cutting ties with those who've held the country back. Here's the striking part. It's making the old guard nervous. The presidents in their marble palaces, the ones who fly to Europe while their people suffer, they see Traoré's beat-up truck, his simple clothes, his no-nonsense approach, and it hits them. That's what real leadership looks like. Not designer suits and photo ops, not empty promises, just service, sacrifice, hard work. And now, all across Africa, people are watching. They're asking, if Burkina Faso can do it, why can't we? Traoré's actions are exposing the corrupt elite for what they are. His discipline highlights their greed. His courage magnifies their fear. His focus on the people shames their selfishness. Some can't sleep at night, haunted by the thought that they could have done better, that they should have done better. But deep down, they know what they lack: integrity, honor, a real love for their country. What Traoré is doing echoes the dreams of leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, and Thomas Sankara, visionaries who believed Africa didn't need to mimic the West to succeed. That this continent isn't just a treasure chest for outsiders to plunder, it's home to resilient, brilliant people who deserve better. At a major forum in Russia in 2023, Traoré asked a piercing question: how can a continent this rich in gold, oil, and resources be the poorest in the world? The answer isn't complicated, it's not hidden, it's right there, in the greed of those who were supposed to serve, not steal. But Burkina Faso is charting a new course. French troops? Gone. Unfair deals? Cancelled. Foreign interference? Rejected. Now, instead of exporting raw gold, they're refining it themselves. Instead of waiting for handouts, they're growing their own food, building their own future. This isn't just talk, it's action. It's pan-Africanism in practice, not as a slogan, but as a way forward. It's about standing firm, making your own choices, and lifting your people as you rise. Picture this. What if every African leader earned a soldier's salary? What if presidential motorcades vanished, replaced by leaders biking through their own streets? Imagine if the money spent on private jets went to hospitals, schools, and bridges. Walk into any town, see a well-equipped clinic down the road. Every village has a school with books, desks, and teachers paid on time. Trains connect the continent, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, real links, real progress. And here's the kicker: leaders who actually fear the people when they fail, not the other way around. That's the shift we're talking about, a total rewrite of the old story. Now let's be clear, Burkina Faso isn't a fairy tale. It's a nation still fighting, against insurgencies, against pressure, against immense odds. But in the middle of that storm, something remarkable is happening. It's not about perfect conditions, it's about bold choices. One young captain in one of Africa's smallest countries is staring down powerful forces and refusing to back down. If he can do it, what's stopping the oil-rich nations, the diamond-filled lands? What's their excuse? Where's their courage? This isn't just a moment for applause, it's a call to action. Traoré's humility shouldn't shock us, it should remind us what leadership is supposed to be. The rise of Burkina Faso isn't a solo journey. It's a path we should all be walking, from Cape to Cairo, from city to village. The era of greedy rulers and stolen wealth must end. What we need now are leaders who serve, not steal. Builders, not looters. That's why people see Captain Ibrahim Traoré not just as Burkina Faso's leader, but as a moral compass for the continent. His hands aren't counting cash, they're planting seeds. His fight isn't for power, it's for dignity, for self-reliance, for a future where Africa doesn't crawl but charges forward. And when you look at the old leaders clinging to power in their palaces, terrified of losing their grip, it's obvious why they're shaken. Traoré's simple truck speaks louder than their limousines. His service is an indictment. His example is a mirror, showing them everything they chose not to be. As he builds, the people are watching, and they're starting to ask not just why is Burkina Faso changing, but why not us too? Because Africa doesn't need more thieves in suits. What's happening now feels familiar, and yet entirely new. It echoes the dreams of Sankara, Lumumba, Nkrumah, leaders who saw Africa not as a prize for outsiders, but as a home worth fighting for. Our problem isn't a lack of resources, it's the people we've allowed to control them. The hard truth? Many of our so-called leaders were never leaders at all. They were middlemen for foreign interests. They traded power for privilege and sold out their people for comfort. That's why corruption isn't just a problem, it's a war on Africa's soul. Every stolen dollar is a missing hospital bed. Every rigged contract is a child without a school. Every offshore account is a mother weeping over an empty pantry. The African Union estimates over $148 billion is lost to corruption yearly. That's not just money, it's stolen futures. It's why our brightest minds dream of leaving instead of leading. In Nigeria, oil flows like rivers, yet blackouts are daily. In Kenya, roads crumble while phantom projects swallow budgets. This isn't mismanagement, it's theft in broad daylight. And the worst part? The very institutions meant to help, like the IMF and World Bank, have become loan sharks, tying aid to policies that keep Africa dependent. Take the money, and suddenly foreign officials decide what you can build. But the tide is turning. People have had enough. That's why Traoré's rise feels like more than politics. It feels like a storm brewing. Because unlike so many who bow to Western powers, he stands with his people. He doesn't ask what the world wants from Africa. He asks what Africans want for themselves. He's not the kind of leader who hides behind gates or wears suits worth a year's wages. You won't find him on a golden throne or behind a mahogany desk. Captain Ibrahim Traoré wears army boots and dusty fatigues. He walks among his people, not just waving, but talking, listening, speaking their language, literally. He doesn't pretend to understand the struggle. He lives it. When he says he wants to lift his people from poverty, it's not a soundbite. It's a mission, and he's chasing it with everything he's got. In Burkina Faso, his government isn't waiting for the world to fix things. They've united communities and the military to fight threats. Locals aren't bystanders. They're trained, trusted, and empowered to defend their land. Food has become a battleground, too. Traoré isn't begging for foreign grain. He's pushing the country to feed itself, cutting ties with those who profit from Africa's hunger. Of course, it's not perfect. Critics raise concerns, some question his methods, others worry about democracy's return. Those questions matter. But let's be real. What good is democracy when children starve? What's freedom when people can't afford medicine or walk safely? Traoré's approach might not fit neat Western models, but it wasn't designed in think tanks. It was born from urgency, not ambition. Then came January 7, 2025. Ghana hosted President John Mahama's inauguration. World leaders arrived, suits pressed, speeches ready. But when Captain Traoré stepped onto Accra's Black Star Square in military gear, a sidearm on his hip, the energy shifted. The crowd didn't see just another dignitary. The cheers weren't for a name on a program. They were for a symbol. In him, they saw something different. Not a man chasing fame or wealth, just change. The moment resonated deeply in Ghana, a nation that remembers Kwame Nkrumah's fire, his belief that Africa could rise on its own terms. That scene wasn't random. For months, across social media, in Lagos, Nairobi, Johannesburg, Dakar, young Africans have watched Traoré, not with cynicism, but hope. Some call him a modern Sankara, the revolutionary who challenged the status quo and paid with his life. Like Traoré, Sankara took power at 34, preached self-reliance, and made outsiders nervous. Now, history seems to repeat. But this time, Traoré is called the blueprint, proof of what leadership could be if it weren't poisoned by greed or foreign pressure. When Traoré appeared in Ghana, he wasn't just another face in the crowd. His presence was a quiet lesson that real leadership isn't about private jets or palaces. It's about service. It's about stepping off the stage and walking beside the people who put you there. That message, it landed. If other African leaders were watching, they'd have seen more than a man in uniform. They'd have seen a reckoning. Because true leadership doesn't mean sitting above the people. It means carrying their burdens first. and it certainly doesn't mean protecting the rich while the poor starve. If someone steals from the nation, they must face justice. No more cover-ups, no more impunity. Africa has been trapped too long, leaders taking loans they don't need, selling resources to foreign firms, while schools collapse and hospitals rot. Why? Because the old system wasn't built for the people. It was designed to keep Africa begging, waiting, compliant. But something's changing. People are awake. They see the lies. They're done watching leaders speed by in convoys while they walk miles for water. They're tired of empty promises while the same hands keep taking. That's why Traoré isn't just a trending topic. He's a mirror, showing what's possible when a leader actually serves. No, he's not perfect. He's made hard calls. But one thing's clear. He's unafraid to break the mold. He's transparent about where money goes. He's not signing shady foreign deals. He's using Burkina Faso's gold, land, and people to build from within. This is what leadership should be. No more backroom bargains that leave citizens poor and billionaires richer. No more luxury hotels while kids sit on classroom floors. That money should build hospitals, create jobs, feed families, not buy mansions for the already rich. And let's stop pretending corruption is too deep to fix. It's only deep because those in power let it thrive. Traoré shows that with real political will, when a leader chooses integrity, change happens. He's also exposing the IMF and World Bank's old game. These institutions have trapped African nations in cycles of debt and dependency. Countries sell their futures just to repay loans they didn't need, loans made necessary because their wealth was stolen in the first place. Now Traoré says, we don't have to play that game. We can build without begging. We can trade, but as equals, not beggars.